February 15th. This is a meeting of the Select Board of Bolton, Massachusetts. Our third Select Board member, Brian Boyle, is not able to participate with us this evening. But we do have a quorum of 2 members, so we will proceed. First in our
8:15, or hitting your town about 8:15, coming down, which is our Bolton Road, to your Harvard Road, and then turning right on Green Road, and then turning right on Bear Hill back into Harvard on our Scott Road. So we would have 3 road marshals at each of those 2 intersections, and they'd be in your town for about half an hour. We haven't changed the route or anything about it.
Okay. From the material provided, the police chief has reviewed this. And do we have all the necessary documentation and insurance and all the other fun stuff?
I do, and if I haven't sent it, I will. I have all the permissions, or the on the insurance. You guys are listed as covered. So
All right,
we'll get to
Jenny,
Jenny as usual.
do we need to make any of this approval conditional?
I would make it conditional upon the insurance certificate, because often those don't come until right before the event.
Okay. Do you want to take this?
I have ours in hand, so I can give
Oh,
that
great.
to you.
Yeah,
Right.
Yep.
perfect.
Sue, do you want to just tell people what this is for and if they want to
Absolutely.
participate? Because we have an enormous audience viewing this, and any publicity that you can get, I'm sure would be most helpful at this meeting.
Sure. This is our Harvard Lions Club, and this is our major fundraiser. We raise funds for our sight and hearing charities. So half of everything raised goes to our Lions charities such as that, and the other half goes to town-related needs, as far as veterans and food pantries and that sort of thing.
Okay,
So yeah, it's basically our major one.
So if someone who happened to be watching wanted to join, they can just go to the Harvard Lions website and get information on this?
They can, harvardlions.com, and then they need to start swimming, biking, and running, so they are ready to go.
There you go.
You got
That's the
time.
easy
You can
part.
start now. Yeah.
Okay. Stan, any questions?
No, I'm good.
All right, could I have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the request from Sue Reedich of the Harvard Lions Club for approval to hold the triathlon on Sunday, June 9th, 2024, contingent upon receiving the insurance information.
I will second that. Roll call. Stan?
Yes.
I'm a yes also. Thank you very much, Sue. Good luck.
Thanks, Sue. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your evening. Bye.
You too.
Roll calls.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
Next up, by just the sheerest, highest level of virtue, we immediately go to the town administrator report. And that would be with your town administrator, Don Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I admit this is not just on the agenda, but I'll just note that I won't be able to participate in this year's triathlon, unfortunately. Sorry, I'm going to miss it.
Yeah,
So-
I'm sure I'm sure it's because you have other commitments.
Well, it's that nagging hamstring. So, this will be our first stroll through the annual town meeting warrant, and I emphasize stroll. This is just to familiarize the board and the public who are watching with what we anticipate coming down the pike. Not to get into any level of detail tonight. So just for the first walkthrough, Article 3, which is the same as it is every year, the fiscal year 2025 operating budget, and it's too early to plug any numbers into that. Article 4, spending limits of revolving fund accounts. We have no new requests to add any accounts. We'll be looking at a couple of the maximum amounts to see if they should be adjusted, but that'll be for next meeting. But this is the same article that we've had for several years now. We have a placeholder on here to replenish the stabilization fund, because as you know, the town meeting voted to appropriate, I believe it was $345,000 last year for the replacement of the roof on the fire station. That came from the stabilization fund, and our intent was to start replenishing that amount into the stabilization fund by a one-third process over 3 years. Given our current budget situation, we may not be able to do that, but it's a little premature to start talking numbers. Special revenue fund from the opioid settlement. So we have received some funds from opioid settlement claims, class action suits that the state has been involved in. Our share up to this point has been $5,712.82. We have been advised that we should create a special revenue fund in which to deposit those funds so we can spend against that if and when, well, not if, when we have an appropriate program for it. Right now, it is just kind of sitting in free cash, so we should put it in this fund so that we can utilize it. Article 7, amendment to the code of the town of Bolton, specifically for animals at large. And as the summary says, the limitation of the bylaw to animals in any roadway limits the animal control officer's ability to enforce the bylaw for at-large animals. We had someone recently that our animal control officer fined. They appealed it, went to Clinton District Court, and the individual argued that their animals were not in the roadway, they were on land, and since the animals technically were not in the roadway when the animal control officer appeared, the court ruled with the appeal and going by the literal wording of the bylaw. So with the proposal is to amend it so that whether they're on land or a road or water, wherever they are, as long as they're roaming free and not under control, that the animal control officer can fine it as appropriate. Article 8, to amend the code of the town of Bolton to be able to, well, as the summary says, the Board of Selectmen voted to change the established pay-as-you-throw system from a purchase sticker to a town purchase colored bag to assist with compliance. This requested change codifies the use of town purchase bags for the pay-as-you-throw disposal of municipal solid waste. There's still a reference to a bag. Stickers in the bylaw. Just want to remove the wording, update the wording so that there are no ambiguities, because we would be deleting the phrase disposal of trash bag while failing to affix trash sticker. We no longer have stickers, so we just want to delete that wording. Article number 9, as a placeholder right now, Goose Pond Path road acceptance. That came as a bit of surprise to me, as the whole project up to this point has really flown under the radar. It's gone pretty smoothly overall, but our town planner advised me a couple of weeks ago that up to this point, the developer has done everything required of them to get the roads ready for road acceptance. There's still more things that need to take place. Once we get through the winter, we need to get out there and do a site visit to come up with a punch list of work to be done. And then as-built and other things like that need to be submitted to the town. But as of this point, up to this point, everything that is needed to be done has been done. So this is a placeholder anticipating that progress continues. Article 10, amendment to the code of the town, to the town of Bolton, Division 1, Part 2, wetlands bylaw changes. Rather lengthy bylaw. The actual edits are not all that lengthy, but again, as Rebecca says in the summary, the last revision of the wetland bylaw was in 2013. Since that time, the town has worked with wetland scientists, the community, and an environmental attorney to revise the bylaw, incorporating climate adaptation and resiliency measures. So that's really just to update the bylaw to reflect that work. Next, Article 11, Forbush Mill Road Bridge replacement. This is to appropriate the sum of $128,778. I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat that. $128,778 to fund the construction phase engineering services to replace the failed culvert. This is the match that it's not a match, it's an amount to put towards engineering that's required. The town has applied for and been approved for FEMA money, which is federal money to pay for the bridge. Therefore, we cannot use ARPA funds as our match because that's federal money and you can't use federal funds as a match for a federal project. So we have no choice but to appropriate local funds for that. So we will need to approve free cash for that in order to be able to move forward. Article 12, the Sawyer School wastewater.
Hey, Don,
sorry. Yes,
could I follow up on Article 11?
yes.
Because in addition to the town email address I have, I get announcements from on my personal email address from just agendas and notices and stuff like that, like anybody else can get if they sign up for these announcements. And I got a notice, I got this notice twice about a Forbush Mill drain replacement project from FEMA.
Mhm.
It has no explanation with it about really where it's coming from. It's a notice from a federal agency, and is this the same project?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah, they're inviting public input. The public has provided some input, not the least of which is, so where actually is this project? Not unlike what you just said. So they have been very responsive when questions go in. They've been pretty good about getting back quickly with answers. So I have to
well, when
compliment
something
them.
like this comes in and it's gonna be sent out to the general public, like it was to my email, shouldn't there be some explanation as to why a federal notice is coming to someone through a town email blast?
Well, I guess we just took what was written by FEMA. Well, I mean, we didn't put a cover note on it to explain. We thought it was probably sufficient. In the future, yeah, we can take a look at that and see if there's information that we need to add. But yeah, we just took what we were handed and rebroadcast it without edit. I think we were a little reticent to edit FEMA's work, but yeah, we can certainly take a look at that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting you change it, just that this is a notice from, I don't know. Stan, do you think it needs to be changed? Should there be kind of like a cover notice to it, or is it okay? You think it's okay just going out the way it is?
I mean, I thought it was fine the way it is, but if we want to not necessarily edit it, but just put a little, here's why you're getting this, and it's
Mhm.
just,
From DPW or from the Conservation Commission or,
yeah,
We could put a brief narrative on it, just
yeah,
one paragraph.
a little
just to
narrative
say-
would be fine, but I mean, I didn't necessarily have a problem with what it was, but I guess also, we're all familiar with this anyway, so it's like, okay, sure. But
Yeah.
your average Joe may not understand what's going on.
right,
You're right, and Stan makes a good point. Sometimes we fall into the trap of we're so close to these things that we don't look at it from that perspective, and it's a fair point.
right. Okay, thank you.
So Article 12, there's an edit to it, and then I'm going to explain to you why I think it should be removed from the warrant. The version that I have in front of me, and I know Jenny has made the edit, I'm just not sure that you have it. The amount in it is $46,700. In the version that I have, I've asked Jenny to change that to $36,000. Randy got together with Rob Frieswick, the district facilities director, because they both had gotten input on this, and they both essentially had the same information. The only delta was, what they were calculating for impact of prevailing wage and that type of thing. But once they compared notes, we were able to lower it from 46,700 to 36,000. that being said, it will be my recommendation as part of my capital plan that we strike that article and the board appropriate ARPA funds for it, rather than wait for town meeting and utilize free cash. And you'll see that theme when I do my capital plan. I'm going to try to do everything I can to avoid using free cash and keep that as free as possible for the advisory committee to work with, because I see Bob Guerrero here, and we've got our hands full with the budget, which I'll talk more about in a minute. I'd like to give the advisory committee as much running room as possible. And I'll be expanding on that later in the meeting when I get to the the update on the unexpended articles, which is under select board business. So one last thing, and since Bob is here, Bob definitely should feel free to chime in. But I've got a note here from the Nanachka saying that we may well need an article added to the warrant for that would allow advisory to replenish the reserve fund. Advisory hasn't voted to make that request yet, but I think they may well. So, but Bob, if you'd like to weigh in on the likelihood of that, please feel free.
Thanks, Don, but I actually don't think I'm prepared right now to weigh in on, this is the first
Okay.
first I've heard of it.
Okay, the Nanachka just flagged it as a potential.
Okay.
He wasn't recommending any set amount or anything like that, just making us aware advisory may feel the need to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that is our first pass through the warrant. Compared to many years, it's a relatively short warrant, which no one is complaining about. We aren't getting any articles from planning because they're awaiting the completion of the output for the master plan steering committee. So you can anticipate many zoning articles next year. I think that's a fair statement. I will watch from home as you're doing that.
Me too.
So good luck with that to those I leave behind. But that's our first pass through the warrant. So unless you have any questions or comments, I will move on.
How much did you pay the planning board to delay that to next year, Don?
Well, you're aware that there's 10,000 in purchase of services, right? So not anymore. Good old planning board. Okay, so moving on, MVP grant update. Just not a lot new from our last meeting. You know, we did hire the consultant to work on the design for Derby Field. That's the big action item right there. The team is working on assembling a grant application for step 2, phase 2 of the project, which I really hope is going to be successful. I think that would be fantastic for the town. I think we'll be submitting a very competitive grant. If I remember correctly, I think the submission deadline is sometime in March. I don't remember the date, but I think it's in March. So that'll be pulled together fairly soon. Next, update on the budget meeting that I had with Superintendent Downing. Superintendent Downing scheduled time to meet with each town administrator individually. I met with Superintendent Downing and Ross Mulcairn in Superintendent Downing's office last week. It was a very useful meeting with just the three of us. Obviously, we could focus on Bolton issues without the other town administrators having to sit through it. I was very clear on where our budget stands. He was very clear on where his budget stands or stood. Certainly, Chapter 70 money didn't come in at the increase they were anticipating. Superintendent Downing did offer different scenarios up to and including what a $1.5 million decrease in the current ask would look like, which I believe would bring our assessment down to 4.22%. I encouraged him to try to dig a little deeper to at least get to 4%. I did let him know the value of that, which is, and I may have mentioned this in my previous update. When I spoke with Nanachka, I asked her to quantify for me what is the dollar value of every 50 basis point increase in the assessment. So in my mind, the difference between 4% and 4.5. Every 50 basis points equates to approximately $87,000. So a 4.22%, because we do have a 4% placeholder in right now to work off of, which, you know, is part of our budget deficit. So the additional 0.22, you round it up to 0.25, it's basically, you know, 87,000 divided by 2, or, you know, so call it $44,000 over and above what we've got budgeted right now as a placeholder. And he appreciated that level of detail. I think he found it useful. He did share some of the challenges they're dealing with, just as I did. Again, I think he's been very forthcoming with information. We didn't arrive at any conclusions. I just did the best I could to paint the picture for him as, you know, what the situation that the town is in. I think he painted a fair picture for me as what situation the district is in right now. And, you know, we'll just continue on and see what the proposal is at the Tri-Town meeting of February 27th, I believe it is. I will just note, and I'm probably not telling anybody anything they don't already know, but whatever Superintendent Downing presents at the meeting on February 27th, my personal opinion is should not be construed as the final budget, because it's not the final budget until the school committee votes it. And I believe that meeting is being held on March 13th. So until we have a final school committee budget, we won't know the exact budget number. We'll know an order of magnitude. I think for planning purposes, we can use Superintendent Downing's numbers on February 27th, but I don't think we have the final picture until after the school committee votes. That's just my opinion. I will also say that given what we're looking at right now, again, in my opinion, not trying to reflect the opinion of the select board or anybody else, if we have to continue using free cash to supplement our operating budget, in my view, since it is increasing year over year, that is not a sustainable approach. And at some point, I'm concerned, I don't know if it's next year or the year after, but I'm concerned that at some point, the town is going to have a serious discussion about an operating override if this trend continues. So again, I don't think I'm saying anything anybody on this call doesn't already think or know. I'm just offering my opinion. So on that cheery note, that's all I have. But I will be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Don, when you met with the superintendent and the 4.22% that he offered to Bolton, was that before or after the certification of their E&D at close to $2.5 million?
I believe it was after. I'm pretty sure it was after. We did have a conversation about E&D. I don't know, so I don't want to represent this as anything as a possibility. I don't know if there are going to be discussions about digging deeper into their E&D than what they're currently planning on utilizing. But I do believe it was after the certification.
Okay. And I also do agree with your comment about unsustainable. We have actually said this now for several years. So this is not a new concept or a new concern. We've had this concern now for, I'm going to say, for at least 3 or 4 or more years.
So
Okay.
unless there's anything else, that's all I have for the board this evening.
All right, thank you, Don. Are there any public service announcements going on the select board business? No.
That's it.
Future agenda items people would like to see.
Yes, there was one that I had raised, but because Mr. Boyle is not in attendance, I think at the next meeting, would like to have the fire chief in to discuss the vehicle purchases that were done for the the FY 2021 ATM and the more recent 2023 ATM. Have that discussion. I'm gonna forward some questions to the chief. I think I'd like to see a bit more detail on what they can do and keeping within the HIPAA requirements and privacy of what the dollar amounts are for delinquent payers, specifically residents in the town of Bolton. And dovetailing on the article to clean up the bylaw for the stickers versus the bags. I've been chatting a bit with the DPW workers at the transfer station, as well as some direct observation of folks being a bit creative with the use of those bags. And I'd like to have a discussion, and certainly getting Randy's concurrence on that. Whether we either incorporate something in the bylaw or whether we want to have a discussion and come up with a policy of exactly how they're supposed to use those bags, and what they're not supposed to do with those bags. Because I've observed some things where people are still gaming the system. If we can have a discussion, if nothing else, more for giving clarity to the DPW workers at the transfer station when they see someone who is not necessarily following the correct letter of the law in regards to the use of those bags.
Okay. I think we've got a very full agenda next meeting. I'm not sure both of those or all of those items will make it to the next meeting, but if not the next meeting, then the meeting after.
Okay.
Okay. Update on unexpended articles.
Yes, you have in your packet the report that Nanachka provided. At the moment, what we're looking at as a grand total of the total dollar amount of articles to be released is $81,579.03. The biggest ticket item there being $52,037.44 that we never needed to utilize for Spec Hill flood improvements because we got a grant to do that in that area. So the work was done. We just ultimately didn't have to use the amount that was targeted. That being said, what I'm hoping we can do is, if possible, to apply that entire amount towards the 10% of engineering for the bridge on Forbush Mill Road. So to be able to reduce that $128,778 to be taken from free cash. If we're able to do that, pardon me. If we're able to do that, that would lower the amount to $47,199, which would give us, in essence, an additional $81,000 that we can use towards free cash. I mean, not free cash that could be used elsewhere in the budget. I'm not saying it eloquently. So again, trying to give the advisory committee as much running room as possible in that area, or as much flexibility, because we are going to have some tough decisions to make. So since that amount that falls under borrowing, I have asked Nanachka to check with bond counsel as to what, if any, flexibility we have here. I personally, because if we're in a situation of what excuse me, what I remember from some year gone by is that appropriated money, and it may be restricted to borrowing, it may not be, needs to be used for a like purpose. So at a minimum, I would argue the $52,000 that was targeted for Spec Hill flood improvements would certainly be appropriate to go towards another project such as a bridge that is going to help with to span a body of water. It's a DPW project, it's a WW road project. So and I would argue that the entire amount would certainly be reasonable. So we'll get a ruling from bond counsel. I'm sure
Hmm.
we'll have it next week, so I'll be able to speak to that at the next board meeting on the 29th. Also on the 29th, and I'm not looking obviously for a decision yet, but since we're talking about the budget, I just want to say that you will see a couple of options from me under my capital plan as to how far we can go or should go with expenditures. And depending on what the board decides, because I am a little bit nervous. Well, not nervous, I just like to make sure that the town is the masters of its own fate. So I guess cutting to the chase, whatever amount of ARPA money we don't utilize for capital projects, and we'll know what the balance is. I'll be suggesting the board look at targeting that towards the budget as well. It's another lever we can use if we do have any uncommitted ARPA funds of any amount. Maybe it can go towards the budget and help us out a little bit more, since we do need help in some areas. Again, not to get into the details, just planting the seed for something to think about. But I'll have the options for you at the next meeting.
Okay, Donna, with this Spectacle Hill money, the 52,000, was that a borrowing?
It was borrowed in anticipation. Yep, it was part of the
Okay.
borrowing.
Okay. Okay, I mean, one option we have is just to at town meeting vote to use it for another purpose, right?
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
Conceptually, what we would do, since we already have the article for the $128,778, what we would do is string together, and to meet that amount, the sum of, from Article X, from meeting Y, town meeting Y, the amount of, take all the amounts that you see there and knit them all together,
okay,
and then reduce that amount and the balance from free cash.
okay. All right, I got it. Thank you.
So that's all I've got to say on the unexpended articles, but we will be talking about that again at the next meeting.
Good, good. Next up is a revision to the gift policy that we approved at the last meeting. I'm glad this didn't take years and years to update it.
No, it did not. So yes, we did receive input from Michelle Carlisle, our assistant town treasurer / collector, with the recommendation that the words that it be modified to say any monetary gifts of cash shall only be received by the town treasurer / assistant town treasurer.
I'm fine with that, Stan.
I'm fine with it as well.
All right, can I have a motion to revise the gift policy as recommended?
Make a motion, we revise the gift policy as recommended in our packets tonight.
Second that. Roll call, Stan?
Yes,
I'm a yes also. Review and approve the 2024 Select Board Annual Report. So Jenny, let me ask you, has Brian made any comments about this to you, about any changes he wants to make?
I have not received any comments from Brian.
Okay, is there a reason we can't defer this until he's part of the meeting? Is there a
I'm
drop
happy-
dead date for this?
Well, the date that I gave everyone for a final copy was the 15th, but I can certainly make an exception
Well,
for the select board.
I think, yeah, I think we met that. And it's just due to unfortunate circumstances that we can't conclude our business tonight. But if
I got
there's-
mine in, didn't I, Jenny?
Pardon
You
me?
did.
I said I got mine in.
I got mine in.
Stan, are you okay putting this off to the next meeting?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Sure.
Okay. All right, so let's put this off to the next meeting. Next up is to call the Citizens Caucus at the Bolton Public Library for Monday, March 4th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Do we have a particular document we have to read or anything like that, Don?
No, I don't believe, I don't believe so. I just believe you need to call the caucus, vote to call
Okay.
the caucus.
Could I have a motion to call the caucus?
I'll make a motion that we call the Citizens Caucus at the Bolton Public Library on Monday, March 4th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
I will second that. Roll call, Stan,
Yes,
and I'm a yes also. Could I have a motion to execute the warrant for the presidential primary for Tuesday, March 15th? I'm sorry, Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Neshoba Regional High School Auditorium.
so moved.
I'll second that. Roll call, Stan.
Yes.
I'm a yes also. Next up is Town Administrator Search Process Discussion and Update.
Well, we've had, we had a meeting with, the organization that's managing the effort. They have, we created a position statement and all that other good stuff. And they're out canvassing, trying to find, some folks that would be interested. They're gonna be publishing it in a variety of venues. And right now, we tentatively, I believe it's sometime in early March, we'll have an initial meeting to review the first cut of the culled submissions. John Petron's organization will be doing an initial screening of those and deliver to us their recommendations of who we might want to chat with. And I think we've scheduled an option of either one long day or two shorter days to go through an initial interview with the potential candidates.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
Mr. Petron was in earlier this week, I believe, and he just wanted the select board to start thinking about, and obviously we could wait until Brian is here as well, but just to start thinking about the hows and the wheres of the final interviews. They will be substantial lengths of time. He's thinking 4.5 hours on one day or possibly 3 hours on 2 separate days. But you'll want to think about whether those are in person or remote, and if they're in person, where you'd like to locate those interviews.
Okay, yep. Those obviously would be posted meetings, correct?
They would be. He wouldn't recommend that they be tied to a previously scheduled select board meeting, because they will be long days, but yes,
Yeah.
they're publicly posted meetings.
Okay. All right, could I have a motion to approve bills and payroll warrants W 24-14, W 24-14A, W 24-15, and W 24-15A, W 24-16, and W 24-16A?
So moved.
I will second that. Roll call, Stan?
Yes.
I'm a yes also. We have 2 sets of minutes for approval. One is January 11th with no changes, and the other is January 25th with some changes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 11th?
So moved.
I will second that. Roll call, Stan?
Yes.
I'm a yes also. And Jenny, can you show us the January 25th minutes?
Well, how about I show the changes again? That's it.
Yeah. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 25th as presented?
make a motion to approve the minutes of January 25th as presented this evening.
I'll second that. Roll call. Stan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes also. Are there any other items to discuss? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that. Stan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes also. Okay, Don, Jenny, thank you very much.
Thank
And there'll
you.
be, just remember that they'll be signing for the caucus and for the warrant. And there's 5 copies of each. Kim asks that you sign each of the 5 copies,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Have a nice evening. Good night.